Hey everyone, I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares with me. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype the video. It really helps the message out a lot. But, anyways, getting into the topic I want to touch on today. Today, I'm going to touch a little bit further on how basically federal faction, state factions, even when they understand each other, they attempt to work with each other. It always seems to go south, right? But for this one, I want to take you back to Pelican Bay. It was 2007, yeah, 2007, I believe, right? And at this moment, I'm working hand in hand with a camarada. The camarada had a lot of jugo with numerous appeals. He was considered a secretary, but not just for one, but for, like I said, numerous of them, right? He was a solid homie, Turi from V&E. Those that don't know, he had that Hugo card on him, right? Anyways, at least in my case, I thought at any moment he was going to be made, right? But nevertheless, at this time, we were doing some things out in the linea right there in the bay, and just trying to establish a money line, right? And basically get it going. And it was difficult because there's a lot of different camaradas on that yard, right? That are touching base with different senores. And so it's hard to establish something without establishing it and ripping it apart in 100 pieces, right? Which in reality is too many people knowing your business. But anyways, while we're doing this, two camaradas, Bandit and Conejo from Crazy Ass Mexicans or Cam, right? They arrived there. They had done a stay in the feds and had been in the state for a couple balas already, right? And basically they were requesting permission to do things for the Pili from ochentas, Bruiser, right? And up to this point, I've heard quite a few stories about Bruiser. I never met him or had crossings with him on any level but this, right? And he was famous more so because you guys know Joe made him, and he had that wiggle to him, you could say. But anyways, at this times, the two main fools, or excuse me, not fools, but Billy's that were out there wanting to establish something good, right? Were the two old man, Alfie and Chavo. And basically, when it came back, we sent palabra, both of us, Turi and myself, we sent palabra up, basically what these individuals were saying. We presented the appeal to them. And at first, everything was firmes, right? Both Alfie and Chavo Perez, they said to go ahead, right? That the Pili had his respect just to verify things, make sure things were legit with Bruiser, and go on from there. So, this is the shoe era, so it takes time, right, to get verifications done. So we just told the camaradas to, from this end, everything was good, but the proper steps needed to be taken. And once their pili answered, we will move forward. So, anyways, time went by, and the pili did get back and said, yeah, that was his soldados. They were with him in the feds, and all he was trying to do was just establish a little bit, right? Since they were there, he made it sound like to look out for them, right? But we all know that's not even the case. But anyways, time went by, and they basically had different orders. You know, what's a big difference between the state and the feds is who you ever mess with. When it comes to state, we can't mess around outside our gente. Well, I heard it's different, a little bit different now, but at least back then, it was either paisanos, you could mess with others, or just keep it amongst us and the gabachos, right? Other than that, you couldn't mess with blacks, norteños, nothing like that, right? But for some reason, it was more frowned upon to do it with blacks. You know, there's always that onset competition, right, amongst brown and black, just sincere, at least in the system, right? And I think it has to do with being the bigger factions, right? They're they want to stay on top of the next, but nevertheless, you as a camarada or even as a pili, what you give the right away to, for example, Bandit and Conejo, right, to do things for Bruiser, then it's none of our business what they speak on and what they're doing. That's between them. And again, if the kickdown comes our way out of respect, because they're there, then firmes. But keep in mind, the linea did not really belong to a Pili. Chato was on the line, Tabla was there, Chavo, um, Alfie, Lalo still had people there. There was a few Pilis that had gente working on that linea, right? And it was basically, as long as it was verified they were touching a Pili, todo estaba bien. But a little later, it arose that Bandit from Cam had first that they were messing around with bloods, right? And we basically reached out to them and tried to tell them that, hey, it's a big no-no. You know, given the understanding that homie was coming from the feds. If it usually works the other way around, state to feds, not feds to state, right? But nevertheless, it was just advising them that Pilis didn't approve of it in California, at least, right? So it was left at that. I'm assuming they got Bruiser and Bruiser basically and shine that and just keep pushing, right? Which I'm assuming they did. We didn't hear about it, and it's weird because, like I said, everyone's telling, right? And when something like that comes on, like a question, then everybody's looking at it to basically politic against you, and it never came back up again to later down the line, right? Where basically a crib did not like the work he got, and he got fronted, right? And he wasn't going to pay it. And that is exactly why we don't deal with other races mostly in California, right? Because it's dope. There's always going to be them dope moves, right? Trying to play it off to sit on either the feria, the jale, or just wiggle out of the debt. It's just part of the game, right? It happens amongst us when we're just dealing with each other to the point we either ram up in their cell collect or we ran up in the cell and collect the other way, right? Which is put still. But you see, you do that with a different race and it's all war. And again, this jar was divided amongst a lot to have it go up on war again and have everything slow down, right? Basically, what your action is taken from numerous abilities. So, anyways, Bandit and Conejo were asking for permission to go collect from the brother, right? And it was denied. Straight up, it was denied. It was you got advice, so shuck up the loss, you know. And we're gonna go ahead and talk to the brother out there that you were advised and you were doing this, and then we're gonna see where we go from there. In other words, you're gonna get disciplined just through the proper channels, right? Again, they had that respect for the Pili that it had to do with him, you know, being made by Joe, definitely, right? But Duty, as Pili's reached out to Bruiser and no answer. Literally, nothing good, nothing bad, nothing going against the camaradas, nothing in favor of them. There was just no reply, right? And it's from the shoe, so you can't jump the gun either, right? You have to keep trying because it might get intercepted or whatever, right? So once Chavo, in this case, was real clear on the Pili getting the mapil and not answering, then the decision was made, right? Which is, hey, how much does he owe you? Oh, he owes me a couple grams. Okay. Well, go request him back. And if not in Feria and Jale, and see what he says. And it was basically, you gave me boo boo stuff, I ain't gonna pay you thing. So after that, again, the request was being put out there by the camaradas, right? Which is, please allow us to go collect. We'll collect the right way. And of course, it was brought up, and after you collect, you're gonna clean up the mess. Everyone's gonna go up because different races, right? You're gonna take away time from those that catch it. All that, all was said to him, and basically Chavo was just one of them straight, cold, and cut type of individuals, right? And he said, "I will talk to my brother Alfie, but you got warned, so there's no reply by your tío or the pili around there. Even though we gave him respect, we'll see what happens." And Alfie was the one that called that shot, right? which is go ahead, okie doke first. See, that's where the scandalous part comes in. Like, they know they were hitting dope, right? However, they were doing it, they were bringing in their own material, own avenue, and they were doing their thing, right? They always had it on them, you know. To put it to you like this, the ones we were doing things with were at par or we were under them always having dope. They were moving good, right? But anyways, Chavo and Alfie wanted them. Basically, they were gonna get penalized. You can't sell no more on the yard. You gotta cough up everything you have. And it wasn't like asking, right? It was now or a bailar. And the homies, couldn't understand why their Pili wouldn't answer. So they chalked it up, gave up the jale, and went about their business. But, sa camarada, you should know, things, when things like that happen, everybody's looking at you. Everybody has an eye out for you, and that wasn't the least of the problem, right? The problem lied that Chavo, more so through Turi, had already sent out word that after they coughed up whatever they had and Jale, when they went out to yard, go 'em and whack 'em, which they went out to yard and it don't matter what you're doing, how solid you are, you can't go against the yard, right? They got hit. After they got hit, they were in the hole, and the Pili from the feds got all of a sudden answered mad, right? They were his soldados. He was trying to stick up for them, and you know, when you're the middleman, answering, reading, rewriting to get Dalmapils to his destination, right? You can't get a Pili's Amapil and push it around like that. You got work to do. Finesse the words, finesse the message, and get it to where it needs to get, right? And at the same time, when that Pili has an answer up, attach his own Amapil and respect by saying it back, right? And basically, to keep it short, Browser was mad, this and that. And Chavo specifically, he told him, look, we showed you love, but at the end of the day, we don't give up what you are, where you at, and how you feel. Them cats are done. Stick your hands in the fire for them. And that was all Browser said. Again, this is the only time you could say I had crossings with Browser, right? And I was just what it was, a secretary of the middleman, right? It wasn't even my words getting across. But when I did hit the feds, I honestly, since my placazo was on them appeals, I felt Browser was gonna do the same thing, right? That's why you gotta be careful of politics. You do what you're told to the dot, but you always piss someone off. I got over there and I was like, you know, they knocked down his soldados. He's gonna look at me like they're soldados. I'm gonna get wet, you know. there's going to be a repercussion coming, and it's going to be through me. Even though, in reality, I was just in a spot where I was supporting, and I was trying to make some queso, right? But it never came. It never came, and I heard nothing but good things in the Fed about the Pili from ochentas, and all I could say is it's a power trip, right? Feds and state. But you wouldn't tell me, doesn't it bring confusion to the homies, camaradas? You know, when yes, when we're in the shoe, we're placed with certain type of in look of things, so we understand a lot of things. But you being a camarada freshly in and start seeing all this politic against each other, the hate that's really there from state to feds, not understanding it's all one clique, and everybody's going to end up eventually together, right? But I think the reason is they're never going to get touched. Is the camaradas are going to fall for them. I mean, Trip, if I go in on the things, Mike Lerma was basically deemed by the feds, and now I'm hearing differently. It's, where does that leave camaradas basically? You know, when you're on the streets, everything's clear. Neighborhood, represent, do this, whatever for your neighborhood. But prison ain't what is told, which is never clear. Nothing's clear. You go in and it's basically like a bungee jump, right? You're gonna jump into the game, and the game's gonna toss you from every angle. And once you jump, you gotta roll with it. But again, being smart don't mean being weenie. Being smart, being staying loyal to those that deserve it, staying true to yourself, and loyal to your loved ones.
This is what we started. We always